nengamba naye lwaki sindika zino gundi mesizange muyola enendaba oba nange nsobola okubeera omu kw'abawanguzi badde ndi awo ekawungeezi essaawa nga 11 kitunga zingira 12 ngenza okulaba nga bankubira essimu sosa butakikkiriza ngenza okulaba nga byaddala ngefe kiweeri ne baginkwasa buli kimu ne bakimpa ati nkubiriza buli muntu yenna yandibadde ng'agenda oba mu dduuka oba aduweyo oba famasi oba kyakala oba ki n'asaba erisiiti kuba bannaye nnungi nnyo era nnungi ddala era neebaza nnyo URA ekwasiza ebishe eno buli kimu kyonna kye bakoze kuba mu kusobola nadde sibyekakasa bulungi naye nkikompamize ekituufu bya ddala temuli buyaaye temuli ki era neeyanziza nnyo byonna neeyanzeeko
ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala mpa irisiti yange. That's right, insist on getting your e-receipt. It's your ticket to fantastic prizes including motorbikes, laptops, fridges and a fully paid 6-day safari for 2 in Uganda. Take a picture of your e-receipt, upload it to the URA website or mobile app and you could be the lucky winner. The more receipts you upload, the higher your chances of winning. Terms and conditions apply. More details on our social media channel. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Aujourd'hui tout est lilo, te wafunye risiti, wagenze kuduka no kule bitu, te wafunye risiti, dayo funye risiti, teleka risiti, nyoza risiti, irisiti. Eyo jole sesi yange irisiti, eyo jole sesi yange irisiti, tompa bidara irisiti. Ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti eno risiti yange irisiti yange eno irisiti yange
sogera bugenzi kutuuka wonna woguza ekintu n'ogamba mpa irisiti yange weewaawo n'ogenda n'odownloadinga app yaffe mu Google Play Store oba mu Apple Play Store n'odownloadinga app eyo mpa irisiti yange n'ogiteeka ku simu yo olumala ogiteekako weewandiise olumala okwewandiisa yingizaamu physical document number oba scanninga QR code eno olumala submittinga fe wano nga tuzannya akazannyo sawa naye n'abantu baffe abali mu bizinensi naffe abagula twemanyiize okugaba n'okusaba irisiti gyeyo kampeeni gye tuliko olunaku olwaleero
hoima iyo kyoinako
dayo fune risiti teleka risiti nyoza risiti irisiti eyo jole sesi yange irisiti eyo jole sesi yange irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala
buli gy'ogula saba e-receipt buli gy'ogula saba e-invoice byonna bikola kyekimu kasita oba ng'olina ekyo kye twetaaga wali mutuwadde omusolo mungi omwaka oguwedde y'ensonga lwaki bwe tuli tubasomese ate nga bwe tubaddiza kyova olaba nti ebirabo twayise nabyo nga kwotadde piki ezo bannamukisa be bajja okuddayo nazo era tugenda kubigaba nga tetunnava wano weewaawo bwe bakuwa ka receipt laba nti kuliko verification code keka akantu akali wansi akalimu obutonyezo obungi kati nga bw'okalaba wano kekano olwaleero wano we tuli tukiyita activation eyehoima tulabe nti ensonga zino tuleka muzitambuza we tunaayingira mu kalulu akawamu nga mulina risiti eziwerako ze mutuleetedde
funye risiti dayo fune risiti teleka risiti nyoza risiti irisiti eyo jole sesi yange
njagala okutegeeza nti essaawa zino owangudde essimu ya smartphone duka nokava mu field twagala okutegeeza tuli wano ku Boma olina akazanyo ka URA konna ke weetabyemu webale nnyo saawa eno twagala okutegeeza nti yeggwe munnamukisa awangudde pikipiki olunaku olwaleero esooso gawula mu kampani
eyo jole sesi yange irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa. Aujourd'hui tout est lilo, te wafunye risiti, wagenze kuduka no kule bitu, te wafunye risiti, dayo funye risiti, teleka risiti, nyoza risiti, irisiti. ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala irisiti
Anyamiriku ala tendi michoko.
I tried downloading.
You try to download the application.
Yes, sir. Put in the application.
Yes.
The steps you will follow.
Okay.
After, the steps comes after
The application. Okay.
Meaning that on the e-receipt,
Yes.
which means there are two types.
Okay.
Which is the e-receipt
And
then
invoice. Okay. Okay.
Enter the mobile number.
Okay.
Date of birth.
Thank you.
Aka de base business yapini yani ma receipts kisi ma records matakimba so that's riwaya yake mumavu yani barini kinandi.
It is a business record. It shows what you have bought, how much. In case it has a damage, you can take it back.
My name is Peter Nyankori.
Peter
Domestic Tax Office.
Tax madiria kan ko mosoro madiria ruo.
You might come enter a supermarket or a shop where they charge you according to the size of your stomach.
That was this me charge me
With the e-receipts, you are sure that the taxes you have paid will be remitted to URA. It will reach under all means because once you have paid, they have issued, URA can easily see instantly.
Ale midu mi okuni indi mi vazi midu risafa security ruindi mami ni yazelo de ale mi fentiko. You have won yourself about the border Bajaj motorcycle.
Zekio adareni like mito FDN ngon mito submitting ngon dalera ayo okay kateralene yazio receipt money bizo fa yo zezo ngone de diati animal bandivi ni musu deliver mawo ta androma baby de bizo
Manta mi onferiada hiyo tangoni
irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa. Aujourd'hui tout est lilo, te wafunye risiti, wagenze kuduka no kule bintu, te wafunye risiti, dayo funye risiti, teleka risiti, nyoza risiti, irisiti. Eyo jole se yange irisiti, eyo jole se yange irisiti, tompa birala irisiti. Ojja kumpa irisiti tompa birala irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti eno risiti yange irisiti yange eno irisiti yange no irisiti yange eno risiti yange irisiti.
When URA said that they are going to promote e-receipt,
okay,
I went and looked for my receipt and started entering. After downloading the app.
In one URA watikan, iwa yom tutual, before a bill tin watikan iloki e-receipt, mia receipt mamega. Pierre tela de niki chero ka weed, idukan mo iken, supermarket, where I wait over kinu mo chele ken, pen you a mini receipt maka megi. Tinu beru jo a pitch minge wakani, diri biberu im. Pour watieke yop anyim watilera jingaraja wamede watera nyim yopiri gimwi do mabu ngwan so pi waji an ko makech ino okara kirjo manu nyingi kilone foyo dini twinyu foyo berejo magut o participating uchake la wo ni o team mo we gulo loti. Congratulations to the people who have participated and have taken away something.
Ilayo pigi manyen Bajaj boxa afiyete itikwane akitenda pete ringu full ringi national ID ni yotabi mpame kumbedi
My name is Omar Ambrose. I'm a businessman and a taxpayer as well. I've been in the business for more than 20 years now. And my business location is on plot number 12, Kayo Road, Bulu City. I'm very happy to win this motorcycle of e-receipt, because for so long I've been paying taxes and I've been keeping the e-receipts. 2 weeks ago over the radio they were giving advice about this e-receipt. I started participating in this competition yesterday and today. I submitted very many e-receipts.
Ojja kumpa irisiti tompa bidala irisiti ojja kumpa irisiti
tompa bidala mpa irisiti yange. That's right, insist on getting your e-receipt. It's your ticket to fantastic prizes including motorbikes, laptops, fridges and a fully paid 6-day safari for 2 in Uganda. Take a picture of your e-receipt, upload it to the URA website or mobile app and you could be the lucky winner. The more receipts you upload, the higher your chances of winning. Terms and conditions apply. More details on our social media channel. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
In Uganda, and welcome to this week's episode of Mchuzi. This is our very first one in the month of August, and we hope you're having a good new month so far. My name is Priska, and I'm going to be your host today. And in studio, I have the honor and privilege to be joined by Lodia Vicky. She's coming all the way from Boulevard. She works in the tax literacy unit, and she's going to help us break down and understand what are some of the rights and obligations of our taxpayers. So this is a new financial year. It's August, so it's really it's new, and at URA we have a new target, and to achieve this we need all hands on deck. And we need all our taxpayers behind us working together to make this happen. That's why we're having this conversation as early as this first quarter, so everyone is on board. And Lodia, thank you for coming on. And please, introduce yourself. I'm sure our audience is very curious to know a little, 1 or 2 things about you. So please talk to them.
Good morning, dear taxpayers and all the viewers out there. My name is Vicky Felina Lodia. I work with the Tax Literacy Unit and I sit at Boulevard. I'm happy to be here today to share with you on your rights and your tax obligations.
Thank you, Lodia. Thank you for making that trip. So as is the norm here at Tax Mchuzi, we're going to jump right to it. So Lodia, what are some of the rights of a taxpayer out there? I'm sure they're very curious. Some know, but some would like to get like a second, like a refresher course, if you.
And thank you, Priska, for giving me that opportunity once again to speak about the rights.
Okay.
And before I start on the rights of every taxpayer, it's always good to refer them where we get these rights, where the obligations are spelled as in regards to our tax administration. For our taxpayers, we have what is called the Taxpayers Charter. The Taxpayers Charter is a document that spells out the rights and obligations of a taxpayer. What is the purpose of this Taxpayer Charter? It actually helps the taxpayers out there as a reference point when they are dealing with the tax body.
And how can I get this Taxpayer Charter?
When you visit any URA office, you can always request for it. You can get it. Then, of course, to the tax body, we use it as a benchmark on to which we measure our services to our clients. In all this, it helps us build our relationship between the tax body and the stakeholders, our stakeholders who are our taxpayers out there. So it's very important to know where we come. We don't just come out of a blue and talk about the rights and obligations. Of course, the charter is comprised, came about from all the governing laws and procedures that govern tax administration. That's what I can say on the tax charter. Then to go on what you talked about, the rights. Very important to our viewers there. In any dealings, naturally, it's good to know your rights. It's good to know your obligation or your role. When you're executing something, and in simple terms, you can ask yourself a question, what is the right? Yes, to get on the right track, what is the right? A right is basically an entitlement that someone needs to have or someone needs to know in order to be able to execute the task put ahead before her or him. And in this manner, we are talking about the tax compliance. What do I need to have in order for me to comply to the tax laws? Those are the tax rights. Among the tax rights I can talk about is equity. Yes.
We hear equity a lot.
Yes, and equity simply means equal.
Okay.
All our taxpayers out there, we handle them equally. We give them the same respect. And the laws that we administer, the policies, the programs should cut across every region, every, say, age group. They shouldn't be discriminatory. So in this, we handle them equally before the law. And that is something that people should know. Of course, you cannot remove certain bias that other people are handled differently. Yes. But for us as a tax body, we handle every taxpayer equally and we administer the tax laws and tax policies in the same manner. So there is equality. Another tax right that I can talk about, of course, is confidentiality. Who doesn't want to keep his or her information private in any case? What we can assure our taxpayers or our viewers out there is like whatever you give us right from the time of registration, or if you plan to register, whatever you give us, the information you avail us, will keep it private. Unless otherwise you authorize us or under justifiable means. That's when we can be able to what? To share. Of course, this one builds the trust between you, the stakeholder, or the client, and the tax body. If at all my information is not being given out anywhere, I know I'm dealing with the right person. You get it? So, other rights that a taxpayer should know.
Lydia, just before we get into like, the other rights,
yes,
someone would be curious about just taking you back to equity.
Mm.
You know, there's always this talk about equity and equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference there? Or does URS subscribe to equity and equality, both of them, right?
I think equity is equal. It's the same. Yeah, it's a similarity, the same, yes.
Then there's a question coming in. Why do you break down the taxpayers into different groups? Because URA has LTO, MTO, then the small businesses, yet this person's then, yet you're talking about equality or equity.
Okay, we break down the taxpayers into small, large, medium, whatever the case, based on their turnover.
Okay.
Here
It's
not, no. If my turnover, say, I work between 10 million, the tax rates applicable are different.
Okay.
The tax that I pay is different. You get it? Unlike someone wants 500 million above, or other amounts. You get it? So that's how we classify them. Of course,
that's the basis.
Yes, that is the basis. To manage everyone differently.
As the law applies
Exactly.
to different needs.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair enough. So it's not, just to treat others better.
No, it's just like if you look at like the schools, the education sectors, in most times you put people according to the way they understand. To our taxpayers too, we understand. Right, when you come from the register, it's not the same way we handle you like someone who is in LTO. For this whom we have just brought, we need to nurture them into that level where he or she is able to progress into another level. Of course, progressing needs the understanding of the law, needs your turnover, how much you've made, so that you can be able to be in another level.
That's very insightful. I'm sure our audience has taken note. Okay, Roger, we could move on to some of those other rights. I'm sure people are curious.
Thank you, Priska, once again. Of course, other rights that a taxpayer should know or should be entitled to is facilitation to tax compliance. Yes.
Just elaborate on that.
Facilitation to tax compliance is, one, you have to know what taxes you are registered for. What are those different taxes? If you know those taxes, are you registered them in the right way? Do you qualify for them? There are instances that people register for pay as you earn when they don't even have a single employee. So it's always good to know what you've registered for. And if you know what you've registered for, do you know the timelines when you are to communicate this? If you know the timelines, the due dates, of course we refer them as the due dates of filing and payments. All this is like a package that the tax body is required to give you in order for you to comply. Because when you don't teach me how to file a return, it will become challenging for me to communicate and submit the return before you, and of course on time, and the return comes up with maybe a tax payable or not. So it's necessary for you to be educated. And our viewers there, if you're planning to register, or if you have business, by the way, our income tax law says whoever has business in Uganda should register for taxes and acquire what is called a TIN. That's a tax identification number. So don't wait. Please visit any URA office. Be educated. It's your right. Yes. You have a right.
Tax education.
Exactly.
So that means someone can come and to any URA service station and say, I have a training need here and here. Can you please come and support us like this?
Yes.
So?
Yes.
Okay. That's a good one. So
and it is our obligation to educate them, for them to do their work. So we have to play that role, educate the taxpayer, tell them what it means to move from point A to point B, because at the end is what we need a result of it. So if we don't play our role, it will make them challenging to comply. So they are right, please. It's very necessary for taxpayers there to demand for their rights. If you're not educated, these days we do a lot of tax educations. We do the webinars just as we are doing right now. We have the face-to-face engagements. Write to us. We'll always be there. We'll always come right at your premise if you're organized, and we engage you. In case you're one or two, please, we have very many stations across the country. Visit any station.
Boulevard because that's where the tax literacy team sits?
No.
You enter.
It's not that you only have to look for Vicky Lodia to educate you. Any tax station across the country can do that role, can play. Our officers are well trained to do all that kind of work, to transfer the knowledge to our taxpayers. So, the man, you're right. In case you don't know anything, please, we advise you, visit us. Talk to us and be able to walk with you in the journey to help you comply.
It's a journey that has to be taken as a team. It can be lonely if you choose to take it alone.
Yes.
And just in addition to what Lodia said, you can walk to any station, like she said, physically, but then there's also online options. URA has really invested in having these webinars, like she mentioned. So you can always go to our YouTube channels and you watch this. It's like a library of, tax information, tax resources. It comes in handy. So if you don't have time to do the physical, go online. Our socials are also available. So there's, we're really trying to deliver on this part, on our part. Yes. Okay, Lodia, back to you. So now we know that a right to training, there's a right to training, there's a right to your privacy, confidentiality, and taxpayers also have a right to be treated equally, with respect. So what else? What other rights do they have?
Thank you, Priska. I think we'll add more on that tax compliance. When we look at facilitation of tax compliance, we only don't look at the tax education we do. We have other means on which we facilitate this tax compliance, and among them is our processes. When we simplify them, we make it easier. So our taxpayers out there is a lot going on our processes. We have simplified certain functions that used to take time. For example, the registration bit, we used not to have the instant in process. And these days, it's just 5 minutes. At the comfort of your room, you're able to have your phone, your tin. Unlike previously, you would go through the Excel, you would enable macrons, you get disappointed. But now you need just to have your NIN, enter through your phone, and your tin is there. Of course, our communication channels, as Priska already highlighted, we have other things that we communicate, like the mails. We remind our taxpayers. We don't just sit, we don't just register you, then we forget you. So we facilitate you by reminding you of your obligations. Please, it's the time for you to communicate to us. Please submit that return. It's the time for you to pay. Please make that payment. We give that, and that helps them to comply. So imagine if such weren't in place.
We will just come after the return filing due date has passed, and we just come.
So you get the benefits of the taxpayers charter. It guides us on what to do. I expect from you, so I also need something for you to help me to comply to the rules. Okay, in addition to the tax facilitation of tax compliance, we basically also need you to communicate to us.
Yes.
In most cases, which communications am I referring to? Is like through the objections on appeal. You have a right to object and appeal, our dear taxpayers. In most cases, we receive a notice, we receive an assessment. You keep exactly, you could disagree with, but we might not know. You can end up throwing it in the dustbin or just ignoring it. Remember, the tax, you cannot run from the tax, man or woman. You can keep on hiding, but at one point, we will catch up with you. So in this, what am I trying to communicate? That there is a procedure. There is a line on which you can communicate this. And that procedure is there. Yes.
Would you just hint on that a bit? I know this webinar is not ready to get into the nitty-gritty of appeals. We'll have another one on that. But just hints, just a little hints on how does someone go through that process of appeal?
Of course, how does someone go through that process is one, it begins from a decision that you are disagreeing with. Okay? And if I'm served with a notice and I don't come into terms with it, so there is also a period when you're supposed to submit it. Within the 45 days when you receive it, should be able to give you feedback that I disagree with this and give us grounds, then we can give you your window to communicate to us what you think is right. Of course, you know Priska very well that we work on a self-assessment regime, that we give our taxpayers the opportunity to tell us what transpired in their business. So in most cases where they forget and we issue an assessment, we do an audit and give them, such things come up. So it's not that when you get it, it's the last resort. No, you have a window. It's your right. But if at all, of course, sometimes you can be, in most cases, right. But don't sit. Tell us your view. We would also love to hear from you.
And I think that's very important to keep the communication lines open. You are a communicant and you also communicate. And I found that many taxpayers are sometimes scared or they don't want to reach out to the taxman for whatever reason. But this is just like an appeal to our taxpayers. Like Claudia is saying, keep the lines open, reach out. You know, URA is not going to bite. Just keep that relationship happening. And the more you have a relationship with us, the easier it is to have these conversations. But when you close yourself off, then it creates suspicion, I'd like to think. But yes, communication is key.
Very key. Thank you, Priska. And maybe lastly, what is your right as a taxpayer? You have a right to know what you have contributed towards the development of this country. Remember, it's a civic duty for us citizens of this country who earn income to contribute towards the development of our country by paying our taxes. And the payment of these taxes, of course, come along with what we are next to enter, and that is the tax obligations. I have talked about the right bit, what you're entitled or what you need to have in order for you to play your role.
And meet your obligations.
Yes.
So with every entitlement that you may have, you have to also play your role.
Yes.
It's like, it's give and take. It's a give and take. You give, you also take.
Yeah.
It's give and take. So yeah, let's get into that part of what are the taxpayers' obligations.
Thank you, Priska. On the tax obligation, or simply, some words are heavy for us, but it's better to always break it down for our taxpayers out there. An obligation is like a role. It's like something you are to play. You get it? As a taxpayer, whether registered or out there in business, what is that role that you are to play? One of the roles is registration. Do you have, yes, do you have that business? Is that business registered? Remember in my first opening remarks, I said that tax laws require us that whoever does business in Uganda should register for taxes and acquire what is called a tin. Having that tin comes with a role to play. It's not like something you will have it and keep it for times and you don't know that you have something to play. So one, register. And what are you registering for? Register for the right taxes that are applicable to you. There are instances where we have our taxpayers register for income tax when they have employees. Register for income tax when actually the threshold is above the 150 and there qualifies them for VAT. So what am I trying to say is register for the right taxes that you are applicable or that you qualify for.
How does someone know this is the right tax for me? I could be in business and I'm like, I'm seeing income tax, I'm seeing VAT, I'm confused. Like,
okay, you can easily know it when, of course, at the first time when we interact with you, I tend to ask you which kind of business you are in. Yes, we probe what is like the turnover. From there, as a taxman or taxwoman, I'm able to know the various taxes applicable. Then, as a taxpayer, you have a right to demand to be educated on these tax heads. There, I have to educate you on these taxes that I see you're applicable on and what is required of all those taxes based on their filings, the due dates, you get it. So that is, but for you have a role. Of course, I educate you, you have a role to play, and that role will, of course, like register for the right taxes. Then, of course, when you register, normally what happens? In most cases, we see people register, but record keeping is a big challenge. It's very necessary and very vital for our taxpayers there to keep records of their transactions, to keep records of their businesses. Why are records very important? Yes, records are very important in that they help you communicate the tax that you have to pay. Without records,
you're guessing.
Someone can use the guess method or can assess you basing on the market averages. That might be in your favor or not in your favor. So always to cut those aside, keep your records so that your communication will be based on facts, will be based on the records that we have. Another important role for keeping records is one, when you have your records, you're able to claim the expenses that you've incurred in your business. Without records, we cannot allow certain expenses in your business. So you see how record keeping is very important? So it's very necessary to keep your records.
Having your facts right.
Very. So when you have your record, the next is communication. It's very simpler for me to communicate to the tax body to show them the health of my business, whether I am doing well, making profits, or I am making losses when I have records.
You have something to back it up.
I have something to show. So in cases where when I'm to file my returns, of course, filing is one of the roles. I have my records to use them in order to communicate. Remember, you have to communicate correct and accurate information. So it's basically hard if you don't keep that. And our taxpayers out there, we encourage you to keep your records. Even when we look at the way we have simplified our processes, say for the presumptive taxpayers, Yes, but when you look at the person who keeps records, he or she pays even a lesser tax. That's the benefit, because you are paying your taxes based on facts. Very important to keep records. Okay? I talked on the communication, which was filing as a role, and Priska, I think it's very necessary for our taxpayers out there to know that this communication, this return filing that we talk about, have dates, have due dates. And what is due dates? It's the acceptable time when you are supposed to communicate. Okay? So take note of them and always follow them.
Okay, now I'm curious, what are some of the due dates for the different tax heads? Just quickly run us through that.
Thank you, Priska. We have the different dates, of course, for the income tax. For those, their accounting date ends on 30th of June. For an individual, within the first 3 months from the beginning of the financial year, we expect that communication of a projection or a provisional return or a forecast. You know, it's good for planning for the tax body also that I expect to get such from Priska. So project, tell us what you expect to get. Don't have that fear that this is static. Yes, you can amend it depending on how you see your business going on. Then of course, for companies within the first 6 months, that is by 31st of December, we expect them to provide us with what we call what? A provisional. Then both the final for individuals and companies by 31st of December. For the previous financial year, we expect that return. Then for other tax heads, of course, like payee, VAT, withholding, gaming, we have the due dates at 15th of the following month. You get it? Right now is the 3rd, isn't it?
3rd, yes,
August. Yes. Meaning for the return, for your communication for July, we expect it by 15th of this month. But don't wait for 15th, my dear taxpayers out there. We actually provide that as like a deadline on which you had to put it. But you have good days from 1st to 15th. You have all those days to place in your communication. Take advantage of that. In most cases, for people who wait for the last, you can always get an inconvenience of the system because everyone will be struggling to put it. So it's better to be the earliest bird and catch the worm. You get it? Yeah. So take advantage of the early times, place your communication, place your return, of course. Communicate to us through that return. What happens when you don't, by the way?
What happens when you don't, you're not prompt?
Yes. For those tax heads that you've not even done any business, but they have that requirement of monthly, please make that nil return. It's a communication to us.
My business did not do well?
Yes, my business did not do well. This is what happens. You, for income tax, you can make, but however, there are certain things that you incur also, like expenses. Please communicate to us through that return. However much you have not made any profit or any business, you could have incurred expenses. Please communicate to us. We will only know that through a return. And when you don't do that, you give us a leeway. Actually, you give us more work to do. And we assess. Yeah. And the assessment, I told you, might not be on your favor or it can be. And the process of appeal will come in, you get it. Unless if you have just simply played your role, file your return within the right time, and things would go.
Gathering what you're saying is, if I have made losses in my business, I don't have to pay tax for that particular time.
Very true, Priska. Actually, when you make a loss, there's no tax you pay on. It is even an allowable deduction for you for the next financial year. But when you don't communicate that, how will we know? We shall not be able to know. Please communicate through the return. Let us know the health of your business. Let us keep the communication coming in case of any challenge. Our offices are open. Please don't feel shy. Visit any URA office. Any staff is ready to help. Yes.
Thank you, Claudia. That's very insightful.
Mhm.
And when you talked about the returns, you mentioned, so what happens in case I do not meet the deadline? Did you mention that?
Thank you, Priska. Of course, just like a family setting, there are always such things like when you don't do your work right. We have some small things like in form of a penalty for late filing, okay? Then interest, of course, comes in for the tax that were due and you are not able to pay at that time, okay? So such inconveniences can come in,
Can be an inconvenience.
but it's something that our taxpayers out there can avoid. When I play my role right, I file my taxes at the right time, I pay my taxes at the right time, of course I can avoid that, okay? And most people ask me, Vicky, but yes, I've known the time when to file these returns. When is the payment expected?
Yes.
Yeah. Dear taxpayers out there, the time for paying the taxes is the time when you're expected to file this return. And normally we have simplified also our filing process in that you file your return and it comes together with a payment slip. Before Priska, we had a separate of that, just as I earlier on talked about the facilitation of tax compliance. That is another way we facilitate them. We easy the process. So instead of having different filing I generate, I file as the payment comes. Print all things at once and you're good to go.
Wow, the taxman is really outdoing themselves. They're making, they're trying, we're doing everything to make these processes much simpler for you, dear taxpayers. And thank you, Claudia. Are there more roles we can go through? Or that's pretty much
basic what you have to know, of course, what you have to play. Then, of course, we had our taxpayers out there not to always put themselves in, to avoid those corruption tendencies. Or something that can make you uncompliant. You get it, eh? Yes, there are times when we look at one side as not playing the role well or corrupt, but there is a line always, a chain of facilitation. So we advise them to desist from such acts. As an organization, we have zero tolerance to corruption. For us to be able to provide you that customer service that you deserve as your right, please, let's all play our responsibilities, play our rights very well.
Thank you, Claudia. Honestly, it has been a very, very insightful session. And I'm sure our taxpayers watching have learned what are their rights and what are their obligations. It's just been very, very helpful. As we wrap up, Claudia, I would just like to invite you to share your closing remarks. Just parting shots with our taxpayers.
Good morning once again, my dear taxpayers or viewers watching us over there. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for sparing this time. It's always challenging to have a taxpayer sit there and watch us or hear what we're trying to communicate. And the Bible says, my people will perish because of knowledge. And really, concerning the tax information that we always communicate, don't be one of them. Please take advantage of the different channels that we are trying to communicate anything in regards to taxation. Someone ever told me there are two things you cannot avoid in this world, and tax and death. So learn to know what is affecting you. Learn to know what the laws of the country that you're living in require you to do. Okay? For the reporting bit, our offices are open. In case you have anything that you need clarification, please visit us. We have a toll-free line. We have gone on WhatsApp. Please, we are everywhere. This time we are coming nearer to you. We have our Tujenge activities that come and reach right at every village. Take advantage of them when they come, visit them. Otherwise, I thank you for listening to us, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you. And I can't stress this enough. This has been very insightful. I have learned a lot. At Taxpayer, I've learned a lot. For me, one of the things that has really stuck out has been record keeping. How important it is to have your facts right, and how you stand a chance of even paying less because you actually have your facts, and that helps a lot in the assessments. And also keeping communication lines open. As a taxpayer, do not be scared of the taxman. We have really made progress. We are a pro-people organization. We want to work with you to deliver our country from begging and all those things. We're doing this together. So keep reaching out to us. And physical, you can visit in person or you can visit online. And finally, keep enriching yourself. We have this program is recorded and it's shared on YouTube. You can always revisit this one, and there's a bunch of others that are all on YouTube, so you can always watch. And thank you for being such a good audience. We'll see you again next Thursday. In the meantime, don't forget to submit your e-receipts. Remember, always ask for your e-receipt and submit. We're going to be in Kampala for the activations. So just look out for our communications and our socials. We cannot wait to have you and to reward you for the enormous job you've been doing, asking for your e-receipt. Thank you. That will be all from all of us at URI TV. Good day.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.